Hey guys, welcome back to more 7 Days to Die Alpha 19 update news. In today's video, we're going to be doing something a little different. Instead of our normal scripted videos, we're going to be doing something a little bit more laid back and kind of an open discussion about 7 Days to Die and the changes coming with Alpha 19. If you're new to the channel, we typically do something a little bit more scripted, a little bit more polished off, but we wanted to do something out of the ordinary. So with that being said, I'm Obi, I'm joined by Sobi. He's going to go ahead and start us out. Let's jump into it.
Hey guys, so Alpha 19 has a lot of changes coming, but I feel like one of the big changes that's up there is going to be the visual changes, such as lighting, zombie models, weapons and tools. So we're going to kind of dive into each one and kind of look at them under more of like a microscope and talk about them and our feelings on those. So Obi, if you want to start it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the lighting models first. I'm going to go ahead and throw up a picture of kind of each thing that we're talking about so you guys know exactly what we are talking about. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the new linear lighting system. If you guys look here, this is the new picture that they dropped a while back that actually has the new wrench model in it as well. And something that really stuck out in this picture for me was the warmth in the background, especially when it comes to like the clouds. And again, I was doing some research and looking into it, and I found a shot in game that was similar to this one. It wasn't the exact shot, but you can definitely tell everything's a little bit more bleached out in the actual game currently, rather than having kind of this natural warmth to it. What are your kind of feelings on this?
Yeah, so I mean, I really like what they're doing here. You can tell a lot of the shadows are different. I mean, even if you want to just look at the main one right here, you can see that there's light that's actually coming through the leaves, so it doesn't feel just as blocky as what it has before in the past. I think that's something really great that's going to be added to this. You can also see, if you look at the top of the wrench, you can see that there's like almost like a reflective surface there, so it really kind of defines that it's like it's that metal and that light is really reflecting off of it. I think that's a really cool aspect that they're adding to the game.
Yeah, and like he was saying right before we move on to the next picture, as far as reflective surfaces go, if you guys look at the water shaders, like the water shading is quite a bit different. You can actually see the sun reflecting off it a little bit more. There's more of a natural flow to the actual reflective nature of it, rather than it just being one solid kind of dark layer. So that's actually something that looks really amazing, and I'm actually really excited to see what that looks like in game. Hopefully they'll be adding some actual underwater textures into the game soon as well, such as like seaweed, stuff like that, maybe some maybe some fish, but we'll see what happens there. Let's go ahead and move on.
Yeah, so talking more about the reflective surfaces and the different lighting, I'm excited to see what this lighting is going to be like at night. The next one, this has the infected survivor. You can see that there's a flashlight, a torch, which we talk about it in the other video, the updated torch model. If you guys want, we'll put a card up on the screen now to that video. One cool thing that I really like in this one is if you look off in the back, you can see that there's that one lone red light just sitting in a dark hallway. I think that really gives a bit of like ambience and sets a tone and an atmosphere for this picture and within this aspect that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, and kind of even taking off that, I mean, you're talking about like the atmosphere and the tone. If you really look at the torch model for instance, you know, it has like this nice natural warm glow to it, and then you can see like the oil dripping down it. It's a lot more detailed than the current torch model, which I will actually show you guys as well. But kind of moving away from that and looking down at the flashlight, and looking at the cracks on the ground in the model in the asphalt there, it looks really amazing, especially the fact that if you look where it kind of cuts off from that corner right there, right next to the flashlight right there, you can kind of see that break away to where that's no longer visible. So that lighting effect, you know, adds that really nice sense of like 3D space, not only within, you know, the game itself, but within like the ground texture as well.
And, you know, absolutely. I mean, if you look at some of the other pictures that we'll have up on the screen as well, as that, you know, infected survivor gets closer to you, you can really see the updated model with him as far as like the ripped clothes, the, you know, the head wound, and then overall that lighting effect where as he gets closer, he gets more of that orange glow or that orange warm, you know, fire feeling from the torch, and that's something that stays pretty consistent on just the dumpster. If you look at that, it stays pretty consistent on the dumpster, where it's that orange hue, kind of a glow, warm feeling overall.
Yeah, I mean, you can even see it like reflecting. If you look at the torch model and like right there on the shot where it's really close to his head and you can see that wound, you can actually see like the fire kind of reflecting off of the natural like moisture on his skin. And then real quick, kind of moving into like the zombie models themselves. I mean, if you really look at this guy, look at the veins in his forehead, the wrinkles on his skin. Going back to this picture here, you can actually see where it looks like the skin, like the muscle tone in his body has started to shrink down, and the skin is kind of clinging to his neck and his throat right there, and you see the veins coming up. Like, that is an amazing texture for a zombie, and it's not something that honestly I ever expected to see out of 7 Days to Die. So if they're putting this much work into just this zombie model, I'm really excited to see what they're going to be doing with the other zombies, as well as some of the other textures that are going to be coming to the game later on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and talking about the other zombies as well, you know, we have other pictures of, for example, Arlene. We have Marlene now. So we have kind of two updated zombie models that I really like. But two of the things that, you know, like two of the different zombie models that I really want to take a look at is like Arlene. If you look at her in the daylight, or if you even look at her whenever she's in that store, you can see, I'm not sure if this is with that updated lighting model or not, but you can just see that her actual model looks crazy compared to what it does now. And we can kind of show a comparison of that as well. And even Marlene, if we're able to find something like that.
Now, looking closer into Marlene too, I mean, not just the like gore textures and the rips and everything. Look at her clothing too. Something I just noticed as you were talking was you can actually see like the stitching in each part of it, and like the texture on her clothing as well. So that's something that's really interesting that just kind of popped out to me that I wanted to bring in. Also, something that we had talked about earlier was some of the zombies in the decay. Like this, the last picture that we showed, his lips were missing. Hers are as well. But moving on to, I think is it Marlene?
Yeah. So we have basically the infected survivor, Arlene, and then Marlene. And Marlene is the newest one that we've got an update on. And that's, you know, you can see, and I'll kind of take over from where you're going, because I think I know where you're going in that aspect, is, you know, that she still has lips. That's a weird feature just to notice, but it is kind of crazy. Now, she is pretty gruesome looking. She's got an eyeball that's kind of hanging out. One thing that I did notice, that I kind of wanted to talk about, if you actually take a look at her, not only just like the gruesome look of her face, and I think that was supposed to capture a lot of like views and like, wow, look at her face. But one thing that I kind of want to point out, look at not only her elbow in this picture, because it has the whole wraparound, but also look at her knees. You can tell that this is something that has fallen down a few times, that's been scraped and, you know, kind of bruised and kind of beaten up. And I think one other crazy feature that I'm actually just now noticing as well is if you look at the picture of her wrapping around, take a look at down here at her ankles. If you want to do like a zoom in effect on that, take a look at the ankles where you could almost imagine something like that is wearing shoes. Those would be like a high expedited process of decay. I think that is a really cool texture.
Yeah, and I mean, just kind of talking about it too, where we were talking about they were missing the fact that they were missing their lips. But if you kind of look at her versus the other two, she kind of looks like she may have just turned. She might be a newer zombie rather than the other two, because the other two show a lot more decay versus her, where she still has a lot of like the muscle tone in her body and everything. So I definitely kind of see where you're going with that. And she looks like she's definitely been through the ringer. Like she's, you know, she was being chased, she's fallen down, you know, quite a few times. Her legs are torn up. So just that level of detail, again, kind of like what I mentioned earlier, is just really astounding how like a zombie model like this, just kind of looking at a still picture of it, kind of pops out and really tells you a story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think kind of moving on from just the actual zombie models itself, we're seeing a huge update in, again, visuals, but we're seeing a huge update within aspects of textures such as, and we've shown them before, but, we can put the pictures up again, such as, the weapons, the tools, kind of starting out with, some of the updated, like the fire axe, the stone axe, the sledge, and things like that. We talked a little bit briefly on this subject earlier. I don't know if you want to kind of share our thoughts that we had earlier.
So like kind of going into it, just starting off, let's take a look at all the tools together. And if you kind of look at the tops of them, like some of the different points, they're rusting out, they're old. So they've been used, they're worn. The fire axe here really stands out to me, just in the fact that I don't think that's blood that's on the fire axe. I think that was paint that's slowly worn out. And again, you can kind of see on the blade there where it's been chipped and it's cracked and rust has started to develop in those cracks. And then moving further down the handle, I'm not sure if maybe it was laid inside of a fire or if that's just like soot and dirt from where somebody's held it. Because typically whenever you swing an axe, you're going to hold it by the end of the actual handle itself as it's coming down. So that's really what it looks like to me. And, like we had mentioned earlier, it's kind of crazy to like look at like something like this. And to me, it pops out and it tells that story of like use and wear and tear. Let's move on to some of the weapons real quick. Something that I had noticed with like the auto shotgun, which I'm super excited to see, is the duct tape. The duct tape holding the different pieces together. And one thing that I also wanted to mention before I let you kind of take back over is the iron club model. I don't know about you guys, and I really want your feedback on this, but I'm really not a fan of it. It looks like there might be different mods for them, where there'd be the chains, the spikes, the barbed wire there. But overall, this thing just looks really clunky. I mean, it does look like it's something that can definitely be built. So realism is there. However, like the whole system in itself just does not look like something somebody out of the ordinary would put together. But kind of going on from there, I'll let you kind of take back over and give your thoughts and opinions on some of the different weapons.
You were talking earlier about the duct tape that's going to be holding the iron or the auto shotgun together. I think one thing that I actually really like is if you look at the Desert Eagle model that they have, you can see that strap of leather held on by twine as like a bit of a makeshift handle, so that way he can actually, or he or she, whoever your survivor is, be able to use the gun. If you look at the updated top tier pistol model, again, you see that same leather strap with the twine holding that together. So I think that's a really cool added immersion effect. Even in the sniper, you can see some of that duct tape, some of that, kind of padding for the stock. You can see that kind of wrapped around the edge. So a ton of different models are being updated just within this actual update, this Alpha 19 update, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
I agree with you completely on that. Let's go ahead and move on to the perk tree reduction. So there's a lot going on with the perk tree reduction. Did you want to talk about that, or did you kind of want me to go into it?
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk about that. That's no problem. Kind of looking at some of the different changes that they're talking about doing within the perk tree. And this is something that we had addressed earlier on. Again, if you guys haven't seen those videos, we'll have a card up in the top right corner of your screen that you can actually click on and go to those videos. Some of the different things that we were actually speaking about earlier before we started recording this video is the lucky looter aspect, some of the different perk tree removals and kind of the additions that they're going to do. We thought completely that they were just going to take lucky looter out, but instead, after reading it again and kind of picking it apart and really just getting a good understanding of it, they're not actually removing lucky looter. They're just removing all of the digging bonuses to lucky looter and turning that into its own perk. And I would assume that, again, just like some of the other ones that we see, and we can put up a list of them on the screen right now, so that way we don't have to read out all of them. They are changing a lot of the ranks from 5 ranks to 3 ranks. So that way it's not as big of an investment for your skill points. So I think that's a really cool thing. I'm actually super excited about that, and I'm super happy that that's something that they're actually changing.
Yeah, just kind of going off what you said there, as far as it goes, changing down that 5 to that 3 ranks it's condensing the game down quite a bit. Kind of something that we are going to mention on later on about the weapons update as well. They're kind of doing the same thing there, but I'm really interested to see what they do, because they're removing a lot of different skills or perks, I should say, that people don't necessarily use very, very often. I mean, some of them, I'm not going to lie, I have used them in the past, but for the most part, a lot of these, I mean, parkour, hidden strike, charismatic nature, like, I don't use these. I don't know if you use them or not, but I'm kind of glad to see a lot of these go. But I am curious as to how they are going to morph those into the other parts of the perk tree.
So speaking of the perk tree reduction from 5 ranks to the 3 ranks, weapons are actually seeing a change like that is very similar. And so instead of the 6-tiered system that we see now, we're actually going to go down to a 3-tier system where it's going to be low tier, mid tier, and then high tier. And they've kind of expanded upon that within, whether it be like a top tier auto shotgun, mid tier machine gun, top tier sniper rifle, top tier pistol, and different things like that. So, I mean, kind of what are your thoughts on those different aspects?
Yeah, as far as it goes, it's kind of the same thing with the skills. Like, I'm excited for there to be a reduction. Going from, you said 6, I believe, to 3, that's a pretty big jump. It removes a lot of excessive trash that the game doesn't need, which frees up space for other things to be added into the game, but also makes it easier for people to follow along with what's going on currently. Because, I mean, 6 different tiers of weapons, like, could you imagine there's 6 different tiers of a pistol? That's insane. There should only be 3. It should be, again, a beginning, a middle, and end, just like the game. There's, there's the intro to the game, there's the mid gameplay, and then there's ending gameplay. Even though the game is an open game, but that's typically how it goes. So really excited for them just to kind of like condense all that down, so that way there's not as much going on there. Yeah, let's go ahead and push forward to the junk equipment. Something that me and Sobi both have, discussed a lot in the past that we haven't discussed on the channel, but we both have really mixed feelings about it, and I'll go ahead and let you share those feelings with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's referring to the junk equipment. So whether it be the new junk sledge that they're adding, or the junk drone, or even the junk turret, I really like the junk turret in and of itself. And if I'm ever playing and I find one and I don't already have one, I definitely keep it. And it's something that I utilize, whether it be during horde night, or whether I'm looting just something in a building and there's a group of zombies and I, slap him down. I definitely use that. I find that, in my opinion, using the junk sledge, it's going to be kind of mainly, I would assume, like a base defense kind of thing. But one that I have a really big issue with, and I don't really care for just because of just the thought of it, is a junk drone. I'm not too keen on that one. I think for me that adds a level of robotic understanding that I'm not sure if you're going to like find a book and have to like learn it, or how that's really going to go for that actual process itself. But if you think about it in the aspect that this thing is going to be flying around on its own, it's going to have a targeting system, it's going to not bounce into walls, I would assume. It just seems like a really big endeavor, and I'm not sure how 7 Days is really going to pull that off. And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. I don't know if you have anything that you wanted to add.
No, I mean, again, just kind of repeating what you said. It has to have that advanced level of robotics. It's got to have a targeting system. It's got to have a flight pattern. And even in today's standards in real life, unless you're in like advanced military, we really don't have that technology. And for somebody like off the street in a survival situation, zombie apocalypse, I don't think anybody's going to have that knowledge or the resources to be able to put something like that together. Because again, there's a lot of circuitry involved. There is microcomputer chips involved. There is programming involved. There's a lot that goes into it that you would need for something like that to be done properly. And I kind of feel the same way about the turret, even though I feel like it's a useful device in game. I mean, you still need some kind of advanced targeting system for a turret. As far as the sledge goes, that's probably the most realistic one in the bunch, because it's basically just a piston, from what I can tell, that moves back and forth. You place it, the piston jumps in and out. But I don't know how to feel about that either. So altogether, the whole junk equipment process, I'm just not too keen on, even though I do find it to be extremely useful. I do, however, think that there is other things that they could be adding into the game rather than adding this. I feel like this is a post-production kind of like add-in, if you would. Like, finish the game. If you guys want to add this in after the game's finished.
Absolutely. And I really definitely do agree with that. Kind of moving on to some of the food changes that they've brought up. It seems like that's going to be one of the bigger hitters here as well, where they had said that they're making canned food more scarce, and they're going to be adding in candy into the game. And again, this is one of those that I have a reserved feeling on. I don't really care for food in game that give you perks. To me, it just doesn't seem very realistic. Like, I'll be honest with you, I've never eaten a warhead and been like, let's go. You know what I mean? I've never had a candy and or just any food item in life that's been like, oh, I am so revitalized now, I can punch through a wall, and it's just, that's kind of some of the things that I'm of course in that one I'm referring to skull crushers. I don't know, what's your thoughts on the candy?
I kind of feel the same way that you do about it ultimately. I mean, for one, let's just throw this out there. They're making canned food less frequent in the game, and they're adding the candy in, which I don't see that being a necessary thing. I get why they're removing the canned food, or they're not removing it. They're making it less frequent, and that's to make the game more difficult. But then they're adding in this candy, which again I don't completely agree with. Like, let's take sugar butts for instance, right? Increases better barter by 1 rank for 2 minutes. All right, now cool. So it increases my barter skill, which makes things cost less. However, I have to purchase this candy through a vending machine, which costs money. So that just doesn't make sense. So I'm spending money to make things cheaper. If it was something that I could find and not have to spend money on, I could definitely see it being a thing. But at the same time, I don't feel like in this style of game, those are like major RPG mechanics. And what I mean by RPG, I'm not talking about games like Skyrim or Fallout. If I mention Fallout, it's old Fallout. I'm talking like original, like top-down Fallout, or games like Wasteland. I can see like items like that being added into those types of games, but like RPGs like this, I've never found a use for them. I've never once in Skyrim, Fallout, like the newer Fallouts, what was another game that came out recently? The Outer Worlds. I really didn't use a lot of these buff foods because I didn't find them necessary. I found them as just more things to take up space in my inventory and more things to take up space in my chests. And honestly, I'm not looking forward to seeing those in the game whatsoever. I do want to know what you guys think about it though. Please let us know down in the comments.
For sure. And with that, they have said that they're going to be adding in new super filling foods. So gumbo stew, shepherd's pie, spaghetti, tuna fish on gravy and toast.
It's gross.
It just sounds really not delectable. But they are going to add that in, and these all have a 0% chance of food poisoning. And I think that's one big thing that I'm kind of taking away from them taking out canned food. Canned food has a 0% chance of food poisoning as well. And, as Obi and I were actually talking earlier, I find that to be a little scary, because even if you were to go out, kill a deer, which I think that the 5-to-1 ratio of 5 meat makes 1 grilled meat, I don't like that. I think it should be a 1-to-1 ratio or something along those lines at least. But those still have a chance of giving you food poisoning, and even bottled water still has an opportunity to give you, I think it's dysentery. It's just super scary that they're making a food item that has a 0% chance to give you food poisoning less scarce. And it almost makes it to where you're going to be relying on these super filling foods. And I mean, I don't think you're going to rely on the candy in that aspect, but you're going to be really relying on the super filling foods and, something along those lines as far as
late game content goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Late game content.
Yeah, because typically once you get towards the late game, like food's not as big of an issue. And I think that's kind of what they're trying to do here, is they're trying to extend out that period of like discomfort, if you would, where it's like, cool, things are difficult. In game comes around, you know, now food's not as bad because you're getting, hopefully at this point, you're able to craft these super filling foods. So food's not as big of a deal, but it's like, well, what makes up for everything in between there? Again, ultimately, I get where they're going and I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to, again, I'm going to say it, they're going to make the game more difficult. And that's what 7 Days to Die is. It's meant to be, you know, a bit of a grind towards the end, and not necessarily a grind in the normal sense like Ark Survival where you're chopping trees for 2 hours straight, but a grind in the sense of you don't just jump in and it's like Minecraft where it's like, cool, I built a dirt hut, I'm good to go, you know?
Yeah, you just don't feel safe automatically, and I think that's kind of what they're going for, is that safe or that feeling of you know, no safety,
uneasiness.
Yeah, uneasy. There you go. That's a really good, you know, that's a really good way of putting it. Uneasy, just kind of on edge at all times, and I think that they're gonna do that, and they're gonna do it really well. I mean, it's 7 Days to Die. It's the Fun Pimps. My hat's off to you guys. Really, I really think that you guys are turning this game into something that I never expected to see out of it, coming from a console player.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we both played on consoles for many years. We've recently gotten into the PC version, which is something that we've both been super excited for. I would personally love for the console, you know, version to be finalized, and I know it's going to happen in the future, so we can go back to playing. Because I mean, even though I can use my controller on the PC, like, there's just something about sitting in my chair, like sitting on my couch, you know, hanging out on the big screen TV, playing 7 Days to Die. But until then, like, you know, it's nice to be able to see these updates as they're coming out, with the fact that it is an early access development title. And I can't wait to see what this game actually looks like when it's finalized. And it finally looks like we're moving in that direction. But I do think it's going to go ahead and be time to go ahead and wrap things up for this episode. If you guys are enjoying this kind of content, definitely let us know down in the comments. Hit that like button. Without that kind of feedback, we don't know if you guys are enjoying it. So most likely, if this video doesn't do well, or if we don't see that kind of feedback, we're probably not going to make another one. But we have a lot more topics that we can cover. There's a lot of things that we haven't talked about in this video that we could still go into. So let us know. Did you have anything that you wanted to kind of add into this before we wrap up?
Not really. I mean, just kind of going based on what you said. This is an off the cuff kind of video for us. We don't normally do this kind of content. Again, if you guys are enjoying this, please let us know. Hit the like button, you know, put a comment down that says, hey, this was actually, you know, pretty enjoyable. I'd like to see more, just so that way we know this is something that you guys would actually like to see. This has actually been kind of fun and a little freeing for us, as normally we have a very, you know, strict script that we actually stick to. Other than that, I don't really have anything. If you guys have made it this far, again, super appreciate it. That's really all I have.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up in our normal fashion. Until next time, this is Obi.
This is Sobi.
Signing out.
See you guys next time.